At ease. It's your boy Soul Immortal. In the book Outwitting the Devil, that book covered a lot of things, but there was one part that always had me stumped. There's a part in the book where Napoleon Hill was talking to this source, and he just paused and said, how did I get here? Like how did I get to this level of understanding to where I can even have this conversation with you? And that source said, it's because of your wife. And I'm telling you, everything in that book made sense to me except that part. It would take me about 3 years of just studying bits and pieces to finally understand what was being said or what was meant, right? Men, we always put out red pill information, to inform men on what to look out for and the pitfalls of dealing with women. But what happens if everything goes right? You know what I'm saying? In other words, what does a relationship in its perfect form look like? Because, it doesn't matter how much content we put out. At the end of the day, we have to know that man and woman was put here to be together. That man and woman in their uncorrupted state are the most compatible. We have to understand that, right? I was talking to my son, this has been a while back when he first came and lived with me. I was picking him up from his mom's house, and I was just explaining to him, I said, there was a time when I was your age where every household on the block had its biological father and its biological mother living in one household, right? And just the look on his face was just kind of like I never even thought about that. But because nowadays, it's stepchild this and dual family this. But it was almost like it was a thought that never crossed his mind. And it made me think about my father, I was like, what things, concerning relationships did my father see that I had no idea existed? And then I thought about what things did his father see that he didn't know, you know what I mean? And instantly, man, my mind just went back to a time, before courthouses and marriage certificates, to a time where men and women were in their most uncorruptible state. And brothers, I discovered some things. The question in my mind went from what is it about relationships that we don't know to why would a system do everything in its power to divide man and woman? You know what I mean? Today, brothers, I want to talk about something that's well overdue. I want to talk about the truest form of marriage. I want to talk about using a woman as your weapon. Let's talk about it. Now, before we dive into the true nature of man and woman, we must first look at the true nature of this whole world, right? And to do that, we have to just simply go back to the beginning. Now, the beginning says that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was dark without void. I'm paraphrasing. Was without void, and God said, let there be light, and there was light, right? Now, there are three ways you can look at this, right? Now most people look at this and say, okay, well, darkness was on the face of the deep, and God said, let there be light, and the sun was there. But it can't be the sun because the sun wasn't created until the fourth day, And then some people say, when God said, let there be light, what he was saying is, that darkness represents the ignorance of God, and letting there be light is letting there be information or knowledge of the Most High, right? And I can buy into that a little bit more. But after years of just picking up, bits and pieces of other information, I came up with a third scenario. When God said that darkness was on the face of the deep and to let there be light, really what he was saying is let there be balance. And the reason I say that is because without balance, there can be no expansion. So balance had to be put in place first, right? Now to bring this back to the third dimension, right? Let's look at a baby. Now picture a baby trying to walk, right? Now they'll stand up and they'll lean to the right, they'll fall. They'll stand up, they'll lean to the left and fall. But once they maintain that balance, from there they can start to expand. They can start walking. They can start jumping, and the possibilities are unlimited on what they can do, right? And I think about the same thing, when it comes to my son. When I first put my son in the gym, I put him on the bench press. I didn't just lay him down and slap, some 45s on the side. First thing I did was give him the bar, and he would work with that thing, rock it a little bit, because he had to first establish balance. And again, expansion can't take place unless first there's balance. So we can't talk about balance without talking about the law of polarity, right? And the law of polarity simply states that, it simply talks about the degrees of difference between two absolutes, right? Now, let's just pause for a second, because if you look online, if you look on Facebook, if you look on Instagram or whatever, you'll see people talking about, who was first? Was it man or was it woman? I call it the rib womb discussion. Because men are saying, oh, woman came from my rib, and women are saying, oh, well, I have the womb, so you had to come from me or whatever, right? But this is the thing, I understand what the writers of the Bible were trying to relate when they wrote it, but the truth is this. Going back to the beginning, when it says, in the beginning, there was darkness upon the face of the deep, and God said, let there be light. To be honest, these two things had to be created at the same time, because of the law of polarity. Even on the fourth day when the sun and the moon were created, they had to be created at the same time because of the law of polarity. You know what I mean? Picture the North Pole. Now, the only reason we can even call it the North Pole is because of its polar opposite. Without the South Pole, it doesn't exist. Imagine a world where blue was the only color. What would you call it? You wouldn't call it anything, because it couldn't exist. In other words, if there's going to be a here, there has to be a there. Because if there's no there, then here is absolutely nowhere. And the same thing applies when you're talking about man and a woman. See, the law of polarity states this. It says that there are two poles or opposites. The difference between the two extremes of one thing is called polarity. There are degrees of difference between the extremes or poles, no absolutes. This law states that, in fact, these opposites are simply different manifestations of the same thing. In other words, man and woman are one and the same. Two of the exact same beings on opposite end of the spectrum. So to answer the question, was man here first or was woman here first? They were both here at the same time, because without the other, that the one couldn't exist. You know what I'm saying? See, at some point in time, we all drunk the Kool-Aid. We men walk around, in our dominance, and we should because somebody has the quarterback. But what we need to understand is that women are just as equally powerful as men in a different way. Not only are they equally powerful as men, when a man and a woman come together, they become superhuman. See, I've always told you that a woman works like a supercharger to a man, but today I'm going to explain how. Again, it all comes down to balance. The yin and the yang is everything to life. So let's talk about true marriage, because we've gone far too long putting our powers into a piece of paper. Let's start with man. Man is the master architect of this world. The way our minds work, our decision-making abilities is absolutely phenomenal. Now, you can call me sexist or whatever, but the woman's mind just doesn't work like the man's mind. Having said that, a woman has her own set of abilities. See, women are practically magicians or master cultivators, if you will. A woman can take something so small and simple and just expand it beyond measure. How many times have you looked in the fridge and it seemed like nothing was there, and your girl came over and just made a 7-course meal? That seems like something so simple, but that's their ability to take something small and just expand it. Like I've said before, you can bring your girl a few ingredients, and she can bake a whole cake. You give her a few seeds, she can plant a whole garden. You can give her your manhood, and she can create a whole baby. That's their superpower, to take a thing and expand it. So what happens when we join these two super forces together, right? Well, first, let's talk about what we're currently doing so we can get a better understanding, right? See, what we have right now is we have a society of us men, that are now focused on retention and transmutation, as we should, because society has pushed us in that corner, right? And then we have a bunch of women that are now wanting to be boss chicks, and they're on the South Pole doing the exact same thing that we're doing. But we have to understand that this is not our default position. And I'm speaking for both men and women. This is not our default position to be operating like this. See, as men, we need to fully understand what transmutation is. Like I said earlier, it's all about balance. So when a man is saying, you know what, I'm finna, do my own thing and create my own world, that's a secondary position. But what's really going on is when a man is talking about retention and doing without and check, what he's doing is his body is seeking that feminine energy, because before he can expand, he has to find balance. That's the same thing that's happening on the side of the women. That's why you see so many women taking on these masculine characteristics, because they're finding balance. They have to find balance to increase. So that's where we are right now. Now, to understand what true marriage is, all you have to do is take what we've talked about, and instead of man and women both going their own way doing their thing, what if these two independent forces came together and formed a spiritual alliance, right? Think about it. Man having the ability to mastermind his way through life, to come up with ideas to manifest. A woman being able to take his ideas and cultivate them and expand those thoughts further than he can even imagine. This is a true marriage. Now let's really look at this. Does man need woman? No. Man can go within. He can seek both balance and depth, right? Because really depth is just finding self. In other words, man is just becoming his own reflection. And we all know what it's like to find self and to gain our own reflection. It's like a whole new world. But what happens when a man and a woman realize that they are both one and the same? In other words, what happens when you see your reflection in your reflection? Brothers, I'm telling you, your world is going to expand to unlimited ends. My brothers, my sisters, this is what they don't want us doing. Again, going back to the book Outwitting the Devil, when Napoleon Hill reached that certain level, he was talking to this entity, and he said, how did I get here? And that source said, it's because of your wife. I finally understood. It. But how does it work? See, instead of us as men having to suppress half of our masculinity to find that balance, that woman comes in and she fills that entire void. She comes in and she's 100% in her femininity, and that gives us the ability to be 100% in our masculinity. This is human expansion 101, guys. And you can easily see this same thing played out in nature. As some portions of the globe continue to get colder, other parts of the globe, are now allowed to get hotter. It's about balance and expansion. But men, we have been robbed of this due to the implementation of fear and man-made vices. See, men now have to worry about losing half, alimony, and all kinds of things that the government has put in place. Why? Because our women have been tricked. See, what today's woman doesn't understand, and it's not all her fault, is that she has surrendered her power. She has been tricked into giving the government all of her energy. Girl, you need protection. I got your back. Sign here and I'll make sure that, if he leaves, you'll secure the bag. See, what most people don't understand is that legal marriage wasn't put in place to help us. It was put in place to rob us of what God gave us. And I know that's a bold statement to make, but I'm telling you, when a woman takes all of her energy and pours it into a man, the last thing she has to worry about is a man leaving, a man cheating, a man doing anything to corrupt that union. Why is this? Because that man is fully aware that his expansion is due to that woman. So the checks and balances are already in place. But what we have today, men, is really women coming in halfway. Because when a woman puts her faith and trust in the government to have her back in the event something goes wrong, she can't possibly do that and go all in a relationship. I'm telling you, man, if you have ever had a woman fully pour into you, it's something that you can't unexperience. And for the guy that experienced it and no longer has it, he's screwed, because he knows now that every other relationship going forward is going to be half-assed. This is why he cherishes her. This is why man protects her, because he fully understands that this rare woman is a blessing, his weapon, if you will. And likewise, the woman knows that the mind of man is her reason for expansion. Knowing this, she nurtures him and continues to pour into him like she's naturally built to do. Now, I can think of no better example of this than Kevin Gates and his wife Drika. I can easily say that through listening to his music over the years that he is aware of the negative side of female nature. But if you listen to him now, he is fully aware that his woman is his weapon. When he was asked, does he meditate or use a vision board, he simply pointed to his wife and says that he pours his ideas into her, she cultivates them and pours them back into him. Now this is the truest form of marriage. These are two people that understand their power in having each other. These are two people that understand that there are weaker beings without each other. Now, guys, you can go down to the courthouse and go the state route if you want, invite me to the wedding, I'll come bearing gifts. But I'm telling you, you can sign all of the state paperwork you want. If you and your woman don't have this bond that can only be blessed by God, you two are not married. So, to sum it up, it's not that I'm anti-marriage. It's just that it bothers me that people either don't understand or either downplay what true marriage is. And for the few people out there that think that the way that I believe says that I hate women, I could never hate a woman. To hate a woman would be to hate myself. Because remember, we're one and the same, living on two opposite ends of the spectrum. But we have to understand something. And what we have to understand is this. The separation of man and woman has been the plan of the system from day one. We have to understand that this seed of separation was planted from the very beginning. There's a quote by Winston Churchill, and it says that history is written by the victors. Now, having said that, what if the story of Adam and Eve would have been a little bit different? What if instead of it being a story of deception and manipulation, it would have been a story of two people, man and woman, coming together to join forces to whoop life's ass? How different do you think the world would be right now? That's something to think about. Divide and conquer. The art of war.
Eddie!